My grandson rang me up at 5 o'clock in the morning saying, "Grandma, whatever you do, please don't wear your red coat today." I was taken aback. "Why?" His voice was shaky as he responded, "You'll understand before too long." Around 9 a.m., I was heading out to the bus stop to catch the county bus. But the second I got there, I froze in my tracks. What I saw there gave me a real jolt. The phone had rung at exactly 5 a.m. I remember the time precisely because I was already awake. I was sitting in my old rocking chair by the window in the dark, listening to the old wood frame house creak and groan, the furnace cooling down, and the night slowly fading into a grayish dawn. At 63, sleep doesn't come easily anymore. It comes in fits and starts like bread that's been broken by hand instead of sliced. The screen on my phone lit up in the dim light. It was Jelani. My heart sank. My grandson never calls at this hour. I held the phone to my ear. "What's wrong, baby?" I asked. His voice was trembling. "Grandma, please just listen to me, okay?" I felt an immediate tightening in my gut. Not exactly panic, but something even worse. That feeling when you know something serious is going on, but you can't quite put it into words yet. "Talk to me," I said softly. "I'm listening. Don't wear the red coat today, please. Wear anything else, just not that one. Promise me." I instinctively glanced at the coat rack by the door. Hanging there was my favorite bright red quilted coat, the one I had bought 3 years ago downtown in Baltimore. It was kind of expensive, more than a senior citizen should really spend, I told myself. But it was easy to see on the highway, easy to see on the back roads in the dark winter. It made me feel safe, at least. "Jelani, what are you talking about?" I asked. "Since when is a coat dangerous?" "Just promise me," he interrupted. "Please, Grandma, don't ask any questions. Not today. Just promise me." "Jelani, you're scaring me. Where are you? Are you all right?" There was a short pause. I heard a noise through the phone. It wasn't coming from the house, the kitchen, or the television. It sounded like water nearby. A heavy echoing sound. "I can't explain it right now. You'll understand soon enough. Just don't wear the red coat, okay?" His voice broke. "I love you." And then the line went dead. I sat there for a while longer, the phone still pressed against my ear, and then slowly lowered my hand and looked at that bright red spot by the door again. The house felt different, as if something had been twisted just a little bit out of place. Outside, the first crows started cawing. A pickup truck rumbled by. The darkness of night was slowly being diluted by the gray of dawn. I didn't wear the red coat. Instead, I pulled out my old brown denim jacket, the one I usually wear when I go out to the yard or to the tool shed. The elbows are worn. The zipper sticks sometimes, but it's familiar and comfortable. I did exactly what Jelani had asked me to do. We grandmothers have this stubborn, instinctive feeling about things like this. If a child or grandchild asks you for something like that, it's not just made up. By 9 o'clock, I was ready to head out. I walked along the familiar dirt path from the house to the state highway. For 5 years now, the intercity bus, which runs from our small rural community to the county seat, has stopped there at the bend in the road. Tuesdays and Fridays are my routine. The bus at 9:15 a.m. To the farmer's market, the pharmacy, the community clinic, and then home by dark. I haven't bothered keeping a second car since my husband passed away. I don't really need one. My world is scheduled like clockwork. But that day the bus wasn't there. From a distance I could see flashing lights. 4 cars with red and blue lights strobing tore through the pale morning air. The wind was whipping the yellow tape that was stretched across our bus shelter at the bus stop. It was just 3 walls of old corrugated iron where we usually sat, chatting about the price of sweet potatoes and our blood pressure. I stopped dead in my tracks. A tall man in a uniform walked quickly toward me. "Miss Zora, you can't go any further." He held up his hand to stop me. "Sergeant," I said in a whisper, sighing. "What in the world are you doing out here this early?" Sergeant Malik Adaro, our county police chief, and my high school classmate from over 40 years ago. The same squint in his eyes, just with more wrinkles now. "Zora, there won't be a bus today," he said quietly. "No bus." I looked at my watch mechanically. I have to get to the market. I need my medication. There's been an incident, he said. He seemed to stumble over the words, looking back at the people in white hazmat suits walking across the snowy ground. What kind of incident? I asked, my voice still steady. A body was found around 6 o'clock this morning. The world seemed to tilt just a little bit. A body? Who is it? No official ID yet. He looked at me again, but this time not as an old friend but as an investigator. But Zora, she was wearing a red coat, bright red, the spitting image of yours. My legs just gave out on me. He managed to grab my elbow and helped me into the front seat of his police cruiser. From inside the car I could see the tape, the people, and a white bag lying by the shelter, right where I always stand, where I should have been standing today. Are you okay? He asked. Wait, I said. Malik Jelani called me at 5 a.m. He told me not to wear the red coat. He said that exactly. Malik's face changed instantly. The expression of a neighbor turned into something stern and focused. Repeat that verbatim, please, he requested. I repeated everything. How the phone had lit up, what he had asked me, how he had hung up so abruptly. Malik pulled out a small notepad and started writing everything down. Where is Galani right now? He asked. I don't know. He should be at my son Akono's place in the city, living with him and his wife Naima. He's going to community college there. And then something pricked me in the chest. Was I absolutely sure about that? When was the last time I had actually seen him? In the same professional tone, Malik continued. Sunday we had dinner like always. I paused for a moment. Everything seemed normal enough, but lately at the dinner table, things had felt a little tense. My son Akono had been saying, Mom, you can't keep handling things alone. Let's move you to the city. We'll sell the house, buy you a condo closer to us. And Naima would sweetly nod along, unfolding her real estate brochures, showing me charts and figures. It's beneficial. It's sensible. You'll be in the black. I listened to them and I felt it deep down. They weren't really talking about me. They were talking about my land, about our home, the one where my late husband Elijah had built the walls with his own 2 hands, where Galani ran barefoot through the grass when he was a little boy. Miss Zora, a woman in a severe blazer, approached, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her gaze sharp and intense. Detective Opal Washington, County Investigation Unit. They told me you have some information. I repeated the story of the phone call. She nodded, asking for Jelani's phone number and his address in the city. Like a fool, I told her everything. They tried to call him right then, but the call wouldn't go through. Subscriber unavailable. Malik's radio crackled. He turned away to listen. I saw his face darken. Say that name again, he demanded into the radio. Then he slowly turned back to me. Zora, the woman has been identified. It's Ranata Morrow. She worked at the county records office in the city. He paused. And they found documents in the pocket of her coat. A deed for your house and land. What? I asked very quietly. An official deed of gift signed over to Akono and Naima. Dated 1 month ago with your signature. And it's already registered. I gripped the car door handle so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Malik, are you out of your mind? My voice was muffled, not screamed. I would never willingly give that away. The house, the garden, everything. Never. The signature is a very close match, he said cautiously. The document passed through the county assessment center. Everything looks clean on paper. I closed my eyes. Naima's image flashed in my mind. Sunday. She was spreading some papers out in front of me, right over my greens. This is insurance. This is the medical card. This is a consent form. Sign here and here. I was tired. Honestly, I had left my reading glasses inside. Oh, it's just a formality, Mom. I filled everything else out for you. Akono was sitting silently next to her, just nodding. I signed. I trusted them. I opened my eyes. They could have easily gotten a signature sample from some old paper of mine. Zora. Malik spoke gently but firmly. We need to sort this out. I'm not accusing you of anything, but we have a body, a woman in a red coat at your bus stop, a deed for your house in her pocket, and your grandson, who warned you at 5 a.m., is now unreachable. Do you understand how this looks from the outside? I understood, and it felt colder than the February wind. What happens next? I asked. Next, you come with me to the precinct. You give a proper statement. We'll look for Galani and we'll figure out how Ranat Amaro got your deed. I was just about to get out of the car when I noticed headlights out of the corner of my eye. A dark blue foreign car was parked further down the road, just past the line of trees. The engine was running, and exhaust was pluming in the cold air. Inside behind the wheel was Naima. My daughter-in-law was looking right at us. She wasn't waving or smiling. She was just sitting there and watching. Her face was calm, almost empty, and in that calmness, there was something cold and alien. Then she shifted into drive and quietly pulled away. I watched her go, and suddenly I understood two things very clearly. First, I could easily have been the one under that white bag. And second, someone was going to be extremely unhappy that I was still alive. Malik, I said quietly, still looking at the empty road. I think I know who we need to ask about this deed, but you might not like the answer. We drove quickly to the precinct. The building was irritatingly familiar. Gray brick, peeling paint, a perpetually cracked window pane by the entrance. I'd only been here a couple of times in my life, once to report a stolen tiller, and another time when I renewed my hunting license. Now I was walking in as a witness to a possible murder. I honestly never expected that. They led me into a room with pale green walls and a hazy mirror. I sat down at a table. Opal Washington sat opposite me, dry, composed, with watchful eyes. They placed a recording device between us. Miss Zora, she began calmly, let's start once more from the moment the phone rang at 5 a.m. I repeated everything, and as I listened to my own words, I suddenly remembered a detail that had previously slipped my mind. There was a noise, I said. Not inside a house, no clanking dishes, no TV. It sounded like water, maybe a creek nearby or a loud pipe. Definitely not an apartment. She nodded, making a note. Your grandson is 19. Has he been in trouble before? No, I answered immediately. He doesn't drink. He doesn't wander. He's studying at the tech school, working part-time at the home improvement store. He's a good kid. His relationship with his parents? I hesitated. Airing family issues in front of strangers is always hard. But this wasn't about pride anymore. With his father Akono it's good. Akono is gentle. Always refers back to his job. He's rarely home. But with Naima, I sighed. She's one of those people who likes to decide things for everyone. My house has been a thorn in her side for a long time. Sell it all. Sign the papers. Do the smart thing. Jelani has argued with her more than once. He's fiercely protective of the house and the land, and she thinks I'm getting in the way of her life. So there was a conflict concerning your property, Opal summarized dryly. I clasped my hands in my lap. Yes, but that's no reason to kill people. A knock came at the door. Malik entered, his face tired. Zora, he said. Your son is here, and he brought a lawyer. I just smirked. They work fast. Let them in. Akono burst into the room, agitated, wearing an expensive coat, his eyes red and rumpled. Behind him was a thin, slick man in a nice suit. Mom! Akono started immediately. Are you okay? What did they ask you? Don't sign anything. This is Preston Minton. The man introduced himself. The attorney. Ms. Zora, I strongly recommend that you do not give any further statements without legal counsel until the situation is clarified. Whose lawyer? I asked calmly. Mine or everyone's all at once? He smiled professionally, but with no real warmth. I represent the family's interests. Malik and Opal exchanged a look. Opal turned off the recorder. Ms. Zora is free to go, she said. But we will be calling you back. We need to establish how Ranat Amaro obtained your deed, and where your grandson is. In the hallway, Minton immediately started whispering legal advice. Akono was fussing over me. Let's go home, Mom. Don't answer them anymore. They can twist anything you say. I stopped in the middle of the stairs. Akono, I turned to him. How did you find out about the deed? The one for the house and land. He blinked in confusion. What deed? The one where you supposedly gifted everything to you and your Naima a month ago. He went pale. Mom, I'm hearing about this for the very first time. Wait. He cut himself off. Naima did say something about processing papers about realtors, how it would simplify things. But for it to be. He trailed off, and I could see the understanding dawning on his face. You can think about it on the way, I said. Let's go. He drove me home in his SUV. Minton spent the whole drive talking about how the investigation was considering various possibilities, and how I needed to calm my nerves. I listened vaguely, watching the snowdrifts and the familiar tree lines outside the window. Something else was more important to me now. Whose interests were they so quick to shut me up for? As we pulled into the driveway, the answer was sitting right there by the porch. Naima's white Lexus was gleaming amidst the dirty snow. What is she doing here? Akono gasped, practically running into the house. I followed him. In the kitchen, Naima was standing by my old document cabinet. She was cold, neat, in a perfectly fitted coat, with her hair perfectly done. She was rifling through my folders. What are you doing here? Akono demanded. She flinched slightly but quickly composed herself. Akono, don't shout. I'm just looking at papers. We need to help Mom sort this out. It's absolute chaos in here. Those are my papers, I said quietly, stepping closer. From my cabinet, which I didn't ask you to open. Ms. Zora, don't start, she said, smiling tightly. We have an emergency. They're trying to pin some ridiculous story on you. I need to quickly find what will protect you. I work in real estate. I understand all this. How did you forge my deed? I asked directly. The smile slid right off her face. For a second, something hard flashed in her eyes, but she immediately put the mask back on. Are you insane? Her voice turned sharp. How can you even say such a thing? All I've done is try to look out for you, offering sensible options, trying to make your life easier. Making it easier by kicking me out of my own home? I asked. That's a nice way to put it. This house is falling apart. Naima exploded. The land is a burden. You can't handle it anymore. We could have sold the lot for good money, bought you a condo in the city, given Akono a head start in life. But no, stubbornness always wins out. We are all prisoners of your emotions. Answer the question normally, Akono interrupted her coldly. Did you know about the deed? Did you see it? I saw it, she said, lifting her chin. I was at the records office this morning. I checked. Everything is completely lawful. The gift deed is processed. The signature is notarized. All the proper stamps are there. Believe it or not, you signed it yourself. If you don't remember, that's another issue entirely. How do you know the legality so intimately? I asked. Because it's my job, Miss Zora, she answered dryly. Unlike you, I actually read what I sign. And yes, legally speaking, if a document is properly notarized, saying you didn't understand what you were signing is not a valid argument. The court simply doesn't care. Get out of my house, I said calmly. What? She repeated as if she hadn't heard me. Leave the key and get out now. She narrowed her eyes. This is still my house, by the way. Officially, it's already signed over to Akono and me, even if you weren't fully aware of it. Naima, Akono whispered. What are you saying? I'm telling the truth, she shrugged. Fine, I'll go. But just remember, what is signed cannot usually be undone, and when you really need help, it will probably be too late. She turned and walked past me so close that I could smell her expensive perfume. At the threshold, she turned back, a slight, almost cruel smile on the corner of her lips. And for future reference, before you go accusing me of forgery, remember that everything can be easily verified. Who really has issues with memory and competence is still an open question, you know? She slammed the door behind her. Akono sank heavily into a chair. Mom, he said dully. I really didn't know. She never showed me anything specific. Just, I'll handle everything. I'll sort it all out. I believed her like an idiot. I looked at my grown son, who was already graying in places, and I still saw the boy who always hid behind someone else's back. It's late, I said. But it's better than never. This isn't about who is guilty right now. This is about what we're going to do. The phone on the table vibrated. Unknown number. I answered it. Grandma, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would go this far. Meet me at the old mill on Clear Creek at midnight. Come alone. You're being watched. At the bottom of the message, there was a postscript. Remember our strawberry summer. I felt a chill run through me, but at the same time a sense of clarity. Strawberry summer. When Jelani was 7, we planted a huge strawberry patch behind the house. The harvest was so plentiful that we ate ourselves sick, sitting together with a big metal bowl until both of us felt ill. Ever since then it was our little joke, our secret code. Strawberry summer meant it was real. It was serious. I showed the message to Akono. You're not going, he said immediately. Mom, that could be anyone. A trap. We'll tell Malik. The message clearly states, come alone, I said. And it says I'm being watched. If Jelani is alive and wrote this, he's truly in trouble. And if it's not him, that's all the more reason to find out who it is. I'm going, and you're not going to stop me, stubborn as I am. I'm going with you, he insisted. No, I cut him off. You've gone along with other people's decisions your whole life. You're going to sit this one out. If I'm not back by morning, you go to Malik and tell him everything. But don't you dare interfere before then. He looked at me like a child who had been left alone in the dark. Akono, I said quietly. I've handled things on my own my whole life. I can do it now. And Jelani may have saved my life today. Midnight was still a ways off. I sat in silence listening to the wind shuffling outside the walls, a distant dog barking. I called Jelani's number a few more times. Still, subscriber unavailable. Naima's words, Renata's face in the red coat, Malik's gaze, they all spun around in my head. At 11:30 I put on my old brown jacket, grabbed a flashlight, and took the keys to my old Chevrolet Tracker. It was dark in the yard. The snow was gray and crunchy underfoot. I started the engine and drove onto the road. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the bushes, a leaning utility pole, a familiar road sign. A couple of miles down the road, foreign taillights flashed in my mirror. Car was following me. Not overtaking, not falling behind, just keeping a constant distance, as if it was measured with a ruler. Not too close, not too far. I slowed down. It slowed down. I sped up. It did too. This wasn't just some nosy neighbor. This is how people who know what they're doing drive. You're being watched. I remembered Jelani's text. 10 minutes before the turnoff for the mill, I made a quick decision. To the right, an old logging road that we used to take when Elijah went deer hunting disappeared into the woods. I knew every bend in the road, every pothole. I turned off my headlights and swerved abruptly onto the dirt track. The tracker slipped in the ruts. Branches scraped against the doors. I drove almost completely by memory. My heart was pounding in my chest, but my hands were steady on the wheel. Behind me on the highway, the foreign headlights swept past, not yet realizing that I was gone. I didn't stop. I burst onto the old exit to the secondary road, only then turning my headlights back on and looking around. It was empty. The Clear Creek Mill. I approached it from the other side, circumventing the main road. It was already 12:15 a.m. The old 4-story mill loomed dark above the river. There were just black gaps for windows, a sagging staircase, and snowdrifts up to my knees. The river roared somewhere below, heavy and wintry. I cut the engine. I got out of the car. The cold air burned my lungs. My flashlight beam slashed across the walls, across the graffiti, across the rusty metal. Jelani, I called out quietly. The only answer was the rush of the water and the rustle of the wind. I stood before the dark entrance of the old mill, and I knew clearly there was no turning back. Inside, the mill smelled strongly of dampness, mice, and old rags. I switched on my flashlight. The beam picked out fragments of brick, rusty metal, broken planks. The silence was so deep that every step echoed, as if someone were repeating my movements nearby. "Jelani," I called out louder. "Answer me, baby." The reply came not as a voice, but as a rustling sound from above. Then a quiet, "I'm here." I climbed the wooden stairs, holding tightly to the railing. The steps groaned under my feet, but they held. On the second floor, in a corner, sat my Jelani on an old overturned crate. He looked thin, pale, his eyes red. He had aged in just a couple of days, looking not 19 but 30. He saw me and jumped up. "Grandma," his voice cracked. "I messed everything up. I'm so sorry." I walked over and hugged him just like I did when he was a little boy. "Hush," I said. "You're alive. That's what matters. We'll figure out the rest. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out." He was trembling, but he started to talk. 3 months ago, he had met Renata Morrow at a coffee shop near the college. She was funny, smart, and a little older than him. She told him she worked at the county records office. She listened patiently as he talked about our house and land, and how worried he was that Naima was pressuring me to sell everything. She said she understood, explaining haltingly that her own grandmother had also been tricked and had lost her land. She said she could advise him on how to protect my rights. She asked for copies of the documents to review. "I honestly thought she was a good person," he said. "I was a complete idiot." Then he saw her with Naima. Downtown, they were sitting in a cafe for 2 hours discussing something serious. When Jelani confronted Renata about it afterward, she just laughed at him. She said that I was a convenient boy. His voice was hoarse. Naima had hired her even before they met. She was instructed to gain his trust, extract all the information about me, the house, and I looked at the papers and then offered my assistance in carrying out the plan. He became silent, just staring at the floor. Then I asked my question. It was then that Renata decided Naima wasn't compensating her adequately. Jelani produced a crumpled piece of paper. She had been boasting about possessing copies of all the forged documents, the correspondence, and the recorded conversations. She threatened to drain Naima financially for years, and if things went south, she would implicate everyone involved. The paper turned out to be a copy of a bank statement, revealing that nearly $400,000 had been withdrawn in cash from Naima's account 2 weeks prior. "For the hit," Jelani said in a monotone voice, "or for the person who got rid of Renata, or maybe even both." I examined the numbers, feeling that familiar heavy sensation in my chest. That kind of money isn't usually withdrawn for a simple business transaction. But why did she wear my coat? I questioned, perplexed. Jelani rubbed his face wearily with his hand. "On Sunday, when we were all at your place, Renata stopped by. You had gone into the kitchen, and Naima and she were whispering near the entrance. That's when Renata stole your red coat from the hall. Then yesterday morning at 5:30, Renata called me. She was crying, saying she was heading to the bus stop near your house, wearing your coat, to wait for you. She wanted to tell you everything and give you the proof, but she was being followed and was scared. If something were to happen to her, I was supposed to warn you not to go out in red." He paused. Then there was a noise and the connection was lost. He sniffled. "I wasn't quick enough," he whispered remorsefully. "I only managed to call you at 5, that's all." I took a deep breath. "She wanted to clear her conscience," I said understandingly. "But she ran out of time." Jelani reached into his inner pocket. "I have a flash drive here." He placed the small black rectangle in my palm. "Renata gave it to me 2 days prior, saying it was her insurance. It has copies of the deeds, her messages with Naima, and recordings of conversations." I opened some of it. There are forged power of attorney documents bearing your name, deeds where it looks like you supposedly signed everything. There's correspondence where they discuss dealing with obstacles after the paperwork is filed. And there are also, he hesitated, there are letters about our police officer. "Which officer?" I asked, immediately on alert. Ranata wrote that Naima was paying someone from our local department to fast-track the bogus deeds, turn a blind eye, and clean up any loose ends. She doesn't mention the person by name, only our guy at the department. A chill ran down my spine. There's also a folder, he continued. It's encrypted and a video that won't open. Ranata said. That's the most important part, but I don't have the password. I tried to open it, he added. That's okay. We need to give this to Malik, I insisted. Let their experts analyze it. Grandma, Jelani said, grabbing my hand. It says someone local is bought off. What if it's him? What if we hand it over and the flash drive disappears? I was about to respond when a door slammed loudly downstairs, followed by heavy footsteps on the wooden stairs. Not just one person but two, maybe three. We simultaneously turned off our flashlights. In the darkness, a faint light spilled into the doorway. A familiar uniform appeared on the threshold. Mora, a voice said. Don't be afraid. This is Lieutenant Kendall Jenkins. Sergeant Adaro asked us to check the old mill. Your son reported you missing. We're just looking for you. His eyes darted around the room. His mouth smiled, but there was no genuine warmth in that smile. Stop right there, I demanded. Don't come any closer. He took a couple of slow steps forward. Everything's fine, he said softly. We're just checking in. We were told you might have come here. Your safety is our top priority. Behind him, two shadows flickered. I only needed the silhouette to know they weren't typical patrol officers. And then Naima stepped out from behind him, without her sleek fur coat and perfect hair. Her hair was pulled back, her face was bare, and she was wearing a dark jacket and boots. She looked completely different, more real. Hello, Miss Zora, she said calmly. I asked you not to cause a scene, but you never seem to do things simply. Jelani stepped between us. Get away from her, he said. Don't touch her, Jelani. Naima shook her head. You've let us all down, but I kept hoping until the last moment that you wouldn't get yourself into more trouble than necessary. You killed Ranata, he gasped. Oh, she sighed, as if at a child's foolishness. I didn't kill anyone. I'm afraid of blood. Actually, that's what people who get paid to do such things are for. She looked at me. But Ranata genuinely made a mistake. She confused who was in charge here. Her voice became businesslike. Let's dispense with the theatrics. Jelani has something that belongs to me. The flash drive, the documents. You quietly hand everything over now. We sign one clear agreement, and you can live out your life in the house like a decent human being. Or you can continue playing detective. She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. And if I continue playing detective, then... I prompted. Then you're involved in a car accident tonight, Jenkins said calmly. Slippery road, old age. No court would be surprised, and the house and land are already not legally yours. He spoke matter-of-factly, as if reading from a prepared statement. Naima smiled slightly. Think about it. You're alone. We are not. The police aren't officially here except for us. Times know the river nearby. No one would be surprised. I felt Jelani's palm grip mine even harder, and suddenly everything inside me became very clear and focused. You've made one miscalculation, I said. And what might that be? Naima narrowed her eyes. You think I'm an old fool? I lifted my phone. The screen was glowing, a red dot indicating it was recording. I turned it on as soon as you came up, I added. Everything you've just said is no longer just between us. It's on a cloud backup. Naima flinched. Jenkins took a step forward, his hand sliding smoothly toward his holster, and then the door to the floor burst open from a violent kick. Hands up, everyone, roared a familiar voice. Malika Kadaro, wearing a ballistic vest, tumbled into the hall. Behind him were two men in black with tactical gear. More people followed, their guns lowered but ready. Jenkins, don't even think about it, Malik said. Gun on the floor. The lieutenant froze. Then he slowly extended his arm sideways and dropped the weapon. Sergeant Adaro. This is a misunderstanding. he stammered quickly. I came out here on your verbal order. I wanted to. I didn't give you any such orders. Malik cut him off. And yes, we heard everything. He held up his phone. Ms. Zora is a smart woman. 10 minutes ago, she sent me a voice message detailing where she was going, who she was meeting, and what to listen for. We listened. From the threats about the accident onward, it's all recorded. Naima's face seemed to contort with rage and disbelief. You have no right to do this, she began. But one of the tactical officers was already carefully twisting her arms and snapping on handcuffs. This is an illegal detention, she shrieked. I'm calling my attorneys. You can call them from county jail, Malik answered calmly. Try explaining to them why your police buddy was planning the murder of a witness and why your friend had a forged deed to that very witness's house in her pocket. Jenkins mumbled something about not knowing, that he was just providing security, but he was already being led away. Jelani was shaking. I sat back down on the crate because my legs felt like jelly too. Malik came over and sat beside me, human to human, not official to citizen. Zora, you're true to form. He smiled wearily. You could have just told me everything normally. I did tell you, I reminded him. In the voice message from the parking lot. I said if I went silent for 30 minutes, drive out here with a team. You did, he nodded. I appreciate that though. You took a terrifying risk. I placed the flash drive in his palm. Everything Ranata collected is here, I said. But Jelani can't open part of it. It's encrypted. We'll handle it, Malik said. Seriously. Our IT folks will dig into it. If what you're saying is true, this isn't just one bogus deed. This is a big, dirty conspiracy. He held my gaze for a second. And remember Zora, he added quietly. We got them beautifully tonight, but this isn't over yet. People like Naima have long reach, good lawyers, and a habit of crawling out of any hole. We left the mill just before dawn. The sky was turning purple. The river roared and flashing lights cut through the darkness. Jelani sat next to me in the tracker, his head down. Grandma, I feel so guilty, he started. Later, I said. The main thing is you're with me. I started the car and drove home, with a procession of police cars carrying Naima and Jenkins stretching out in the rearview mirror. I honestly thought then that the worst was over, but within 24 hours, I understood the war had only just begun. I returned home around sunrise, feeling as if I'd been through a whole war, not just a night. The house was quiet. The furnace had cooled down. The lamp above the table was dimly lit, as if it too was exhausted from the events. Jelani sat on a stool by the window, his face buried in his hands. Akono arrived half an hour later, ruffled and pale. He'd rushed over so fast he hadn't even taken off his jacket. Mom, he choked out. Malik called me. He said they took you. That Naima. All of this, they took her, I said reassuringly. And not just her. He slumped into a chair. I can't believe it. I lived with that woman for 20 years. How could I not see? I brushed it off. The important thing is we're alive. You mean Jelani, that's a lot. I even allowed myself to think, well, the worst is behind us. As usual, I was wrong and too soon. Malik arrived at noon quietly, not in uniform, wearing his old parka. He sat at the table, cupping his mug of coffee with his hands. Zora, he began directly without preamble. Our guys quickly checked the flash drive. What opens is good stuff. Correspondence between Naima and Ranata, hints of forged documents, conversations about dealing with obstacles after the paperwork is finalized. There are recordings where your deed is discussed as a done deal. There are mentions of our guys. This hits Jenkins hard. But I pressed because I saw the butt in his eyes. But the main folder is encrypted. He set down the mug. The encryption is serious. Not a kid's password, not a birthday. Our IT specialists were honest. It's not a one-day job. Could take months. Maybe they won't crack it at all. I was silent. Is what we have not enough for fraud, forgery of powers of attorney, and abuse of office? More than enough, he said. For murder, it's circumstantial for now. Naima is denying everything. She's already claiming that Ranata was blackmailing her, that she was afraid and looking for help. Her lawyers are sharp. They're pushing the line that she's the victim. And Jenkins? I asked. Jenkins is already singing. Malik smiled wearily. He sold out Ranata and Naima over the bogus deed and the bribes, but he's dodging the murder charge. I was only responsible for the papers. I didn't know about the rest. He's stalling. There's a chance to pressure him, but again we need more than just your phone and my recordings. I looked at him. Are you saying she'll get away with it? I'm saying, he answered seriously, that it's too early to relax. And second, the court decided on her bail today. Her people already posted the bond. Naima will be free in a couple of hours under supervision, but free. A cold feeling spread through my hands. She threatened me. I reminded him. I filed for protection, he said. We'll put a patrol car at the turnoff to your house. A restraining order too. But you understand that someone with those connections and that kind of money likes to play the long game. As soon as he left, the phone rang again. Unknown city number. Miss Zora? A cold female voice said. This is Attorney Tiana Vance. I represent the interests of Naima Famasi. I'm listening, I said. I'm informing you that my client will be released shortly. She considers all accusations unfounded. She was a victim of manipulation by the deceased Morrow and unscrupulous employees. The voice didn't waver. Furthermore, we are preparing a civil lawsuit against you for slander, defamation, and causing emotional distress. The claim is for $30 million. You've lost your mind, I said calmly. Let them sue. The court will sort it out. It will sort it out, she readily agreed. And what's more, a petition has already been filed with the court to review your mental competency. Due to your age, health status, and unusual behavior over the past few days, we are petitioning for a medical evaluation and the appointment of a temporary guardian. Naima Famasi is being considered as the closest relative who already holds power of attorney to manage your affairs. What power of attorney? I asked. A general one signed by you 3 months ago, she said with slight emphasis. Notarized. I didn't sign anything like that. Your signature is on the document, the lawyer said coldly. The rest is a matter for the experts. Prepare yourself, Miss Zora. You'll be contacted. Have a good day. She disconnected. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, listening to the silence, and understood. Naima wasn't just after the land. She had decided to erase me as a person, declare me incompetent, take guardianship, and sell everything legally. Mom! Akono looked in from the living room. What happened? They're going on the offensive, I said. They're filing a lawsuit and trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. Jelani looked up. How? Why? Because I'm still alive, I answered. That's the biggest obstacle to them right now. As if in confirmation, an hour later, a short message arrived from an unknown number. Stop. Sign everything over voluntarily. Forget about the recordings in the flash drive. You'll live out your days peacefully in the house. Go any further and you'll lose everything, including those you love. 24 hours. I showed the text message to Akono and Jelani. They both turned pale. This is outright intimidation, Akono whispered. We need to go to Malik immediately. We have to go. Jelani agreed. This isn't a game anymore. We will go, I agreed. But not with shouting. I sat down at the table, poured myself some coffee, took a sip, and looked out the window at our shed, the garden, and the snow-covered strawberry patch. Naima was seriously betting on me getting scared and signing whatever she wanted. That I'd be more afraid of the evaluations in court than losing my home. Grandma, Jelani said quietly, what if she really did clean everything up? What if she has access to those encrypted files from Ranata? What if the flash drive we have is empty? He had voiced what I'd been thinking all morning. If Naima has her own IT experts, if she managed to retrieve the real storage device from the recovered evidence, if what we have is just a decoy, then, I said, We find another way, not just the flash drive. What way? Akono sat opposite me. Mom, she has the best lawyers. They'll bury us. You see how fast they're moving? I looked at my son, then my grandson. We stopped playing by her rules, I said. She's used to old people being silent, trusting the papers, and being afraid of offices. I won't be silent. What are you going to do? Jelani asked. I set down the cup. For starters, I answered, I'm going to remember everything Ranata might have hidden outside of a computer. I didn't know where to look yet, but I understood one thing. If Naima gave us exactly 24 hours to capitulate, there was a location, a document, a truth she was still afraid of, and we had to find that place before her people got there first. I don't like being cornered, especially at my age. When you've lived over 60 years, buried loved ones, built things, survived the financial crisis, debt, and illness, the last thing you want is to hear that you're no longer competent. The three of us sat in the kitchen. The coffee was getting cold, the clock ticked, and the patrol car stood at the bend like a reminder. You're no longer just a grandma with a garden. You're a player in someone else's game. This is what we'll do, I said. Naima thinks she has everything under control. The documents, the lawyers, the evaluations. But there's one thing people like her always underestimate. What? Jelani asked. The trail, I answered. It always leaves marks, especially where people have been gorging themselves for a long time. Jelani pulled his laptop toward him. His fingers were trembling but working fast. What do I look for? He asked. Summit, I said. Her company. Summit Real Estate or Summit Invest, whatever she called it. I reached for the stack of glossy brochures she had once pushed on me. Here. Summit Agency. Individual Transaction Support Assistance for Elderly Homeowners During Relocation. Sounds beautiful. I'll search open databases, Jelani said. Transactions in the county over the last couple of years, especially with lots and houses where the owners were elderly. While he typed, Akono paced from the window to the door like an animal in a cage. Mom, he couldn't hold it in. I'm such a fool. So many years by her side and I saw nothing. She presented it all as care to me. It'll be easier for Mom. We'll sign it over to us and we'll help. And all along. Stop, I said calmly. This isn't the time to chew yourself out. You're alive and standing right here. That's great. Now help. Stop whining. He fell silent, sat down, and locked his hands together. About 20 minutes later, Jelani looked up. I found something, he said quietly. 11 transactions in the last 18 months, mostly houses and lots around the county seat and in the neighboring county. Almost all the sellers were elderly, 70 and up. And? I asked. And this? He said, staring at the screen. At least 4 of them died within 6 months of the sale. 2 car accidents, 1 fall down the stairs, 1 heart attack. The silence became heavier. Akono gasped. It can't be. It can be, I said. To Naima, death is just a tool. The papers are clean. The doctors wrote what they wrote. The children are busy. The neighbors don't care. It's only a coincidence so far. Jelani tried to remain rational. But it's too big of a coincidence. We need to tell Malik, Akono said, already reaching for his phone. We will, I nodded. But first, let's gather it into a single folder. Not a feeling but a list. Jelani printed the tables and stapled them to Naima's brochures. I called Malik. Zora, I'm in interrogations. Make it quick, he answered wearily. It won't be quick, I said. You don't just have my house, you have a pattern. 11 elderly people, Summit similar deaths. Jelani found everything. I'm not making this up. He was silent. Email it to the department inbox, he said. And here's another thing. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. is the hearing about your competency. Naima and her lawyers rushed it. Judge Marcus Hill. Remember him? Not personally. I know the name. A fair man, but he'll go by the book based on the papers. I'll try to get you a quick meeting with him before the hearing. 10 to 15 minutes. No guarantees. Get it, I said. I'll handle the rest. What are you planning now? He asked. It's legal, Malik, I answered. For now. An hour later he called back. He'll see you at 1 o'clock in his chambers officially. Zora, don't have a meltdown or put on a show. Calmly stick to the facts. I'm too old for meltdowns, I said. Thank you. While we were talking, Jelani hadn't stopped working. Grandma, there's one more thing, he said. I dug deeper into Summit and its associated firms. I found the final beneficiary. Naima, I said. Yes, but not alone. Of course, I sighed. She needed a brain and a cover. Jelani turned the screen toward me. The co-owner. Preston Minton, attorney. I recognized the name before I even finished reading it. Our family lawyer, Akono said dully, clenching his fists. The one who was so concerned about Mom at the precinct today. He's been with them from the beginning, Jelani said quietly. His firm handled almost all of Summit's big deals. He filed the paperwork, consulted, covered up, and today, he came not to defend you but to see what you would say. I felt a strange sense of calm. Not surprise but confirmation. Perfect, I said. Now we know both their faces. We had just started discussing how to organize everything in a folder for the judge when the phone rang again. Unknown number. I put it on speakerphone. I'm listening, Zora. A soft, overly controlled voice said. It's Naima. You're fast, I said. The handcuffs haven't even cooled off yet. She chuckled. Don't worry. They were only on briefly. The investigation is a mistake. The court will sort it out. I'm calling you human to offer a final chance. That's interesting, I said. Go on. Tomorrow is the hearing about your competency, she began smoothly. We have the gift deed, the power of attorney, doctor's assessments, and witness statements about your unstable behavior. She emphasized the word unstable. My lawyers are confident the court will rule in my favor, which means I become your legal representative. And then, well, you understand. You'll sell the house, the land, everything you can, I prompted, and send me to a facility for observation. I will ensure you receive dignified care, she said coldly. But at this stage I propose peace. You withdraw all claims. Stop saying unnecessary things. You confirm in court that you signed the papers voluntarily, but that you are tired of the scandal. I'll arrange a room for you in a good assisted living facility. You live peacefully, Galani can go to school, and everyone is safe. And if not? I asked. Her voice hardened. Then you lose. You are declared incompetent. I become the guardian. The house is sold legally and you will no longer have the right to speak. Not in court, not at home. The kitchen was so silent you could hear Galani grit his teeth. Naima, I said calmly. One question if I may? Of course. Did Ranata scream when she died? A pause. I don't know what you're talking about, she said coldly. I know about Summit, I continued. About the 11 transactions? About the old people who suddenly died? About Jenkins? About Minton? Do you really think you're the first person who decided to take the land from the elderly and turn it into a housing development? Prove it, she snapped. You have nothing. The flash drive? Hilarious. It's been empty for a long time. Everything that could harm me was deleted. The people who handled it know how to work. I looked at Jelani. He clenched his fists even tighter. So our flash drive might indeed have been incomplete. If you're so confident, I said, why are you calling? Just watch me get declared incompetent. Another short pause. I'm giving you a chance to get out of the game, Naima said, dropping the pretense. Because I respected Akono once. Think about it until tomorrow. And some advice, don't try blackmail. You're not at the right age or with the right experience. And you underestimate that 63 is in kindergarten. I said, see you tomorrow, Naima. I disconnected. Akono sat there pale. Mom, she really can. She can. I nodded. If we sit around and wait. But you just laid out the whole Summit scheme to her, Jelani whispered. If her reach is long, she'll start covering her tracks faster. That's the point, I replied. Let her jump. When a predator gets nervous, it makes mistakes. Grandma, Galani leaned closer. Did you really say something about extra copies? That Ranata gave me something else? No, I said. But Naima doesn't know that now. And if Ranata really had a backup stash, Naima will rush to find it. And us? Akono asked. I thought for a moment. Let's start with Ranata, I said. She didn't just fall from the sky. Before she was Morrow, she was Verena Harrington. I nodded toward the printouts. The granddaughter of Marguerite Harrington, the one whose homestead in the Red Pines area burned down after a sale. Jelani was already typing. Got it, he said after a minute. Verena Harrington, then a name change, a move. Marguerite Harrington left her the land, then a refusal of inheritance, then a legal dispute, then everything drifted to some its entities. The homestead has been tied up in a dispute for 6 years. A legal swamp, I said. Can't touch it, can't sell it, but outsiders won't go near it either. If Ranata wanted to hide something for a long time, Jelani said quietly, you couldn't find a better place. I stood up. Get ready, I said. We're going to Red Pines now. Akono jumped up. Mom, it's already getting dark. The roads. Naima has exactly 24 hours to think about it. I interrupted him. Do you think her people will sit around until morning? If she believes there's another storage device, she'll send someone there. I want to be first. We need to warn Malik, Galani said. Just a quick note. We will warn him, I nodded. But we're leaving now. I picked up the phone and quickly dialed Malik. We're going to Red Pines to the old Harrington homestead. There's reason to believe Renata's stash is there. If you don't hear from me in 3 hours, mobilize everyone. He answered immediately. Are you crazy? I'm sending a patrol car after you. No heroics. No one's being a hero, I muttered. I just don't want to wait until I'm a vegetable. 20 minutes later, we were speeding down the dark highway. I was driving the old tracker. Next to me, Galani had the laptop on his knees. In the back, Akono was silently gritting his teeth. In the distance, at a respectful distance, the patrol car kept pace. The sky was overcast, and snow began to fall in fine dust. Headlights picked out snow drifts, black tree trunks, and sparse road signs. Grandma, Jelani said quietly, what if there's nothing there? Then we'll think of something else, I said. But I've lived too long to believe in such coincidences. Ranata wasn't stupid. She knew Naima would eventually betray her, and left a thread for someone. For who? Akono asked. For whoever survives, I answered. We'll see if we survived. After an hour and a half, the dark shell of a burned house and the silhouette of an old shed appeared against the white field. I cut the engine. The wind whipped the snow across the ground. The air was damp and biting. The patrol car stopped a little distance away. Well, I said, opening the door. Let's go find the thing that made one woman a killer, another a corpse, and made them decide to label me as crazy. And only as we got closer to the shed did I notice fresh tire tracks on the roadside. Not from our car and not from the patrol car. Someone had already been here before us or was following close behind. The shed in Red Pines looked like it was held up by a wing and a prayer. The Harrington house had burned down to the brick, a black shell, empty window sockets, but the shed was leaning gray. Planks were missing in places. The roof sagged, but it stood like a memory no one needs, except for those who know what's hidden inside it. We went in. It smelled of old hay, dust, and dampness. The flashlight beam swept across empty stalls, rusty tools, and cobwebs. Where would you hide your last words, Ranata? I murmured. Galani shone the light on the walls. Akono hovered closer to the door, looking around. Grandma, everything is rotten in here, he whispered. Mice and squatters could have gotten to it. Be quiet, I said. Don't interrupt my listening. I walked along the stalls, running my fingers over the wood, and suddenly I saw it, carved with a knife on one partition. Starlight. For a second I didn't understand. Then Galani flew over, examining the inscription in the flashlight beam. "That's her horse," he said. The article had a picture. Renata as a child on a gray horse named Starlight. So this was her stall. I crouched down, touching the board at the bottom. One plank moved as if it hadn't been nailed all the way down. "Hold the light," I said. I pulled at the edge. The board came away, behind it a narrow opening, and in it a tightly wrapped plastic bundle. My heart lurched. I carefully pulled it out. Inside the plastic was a small metal box, and inside that a flash drive and a folded piece of paper. Jelani unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky. Angry. "If you are reading this, I have either completely messed up or I am dead. Naima Famasi destroyed my grandmother and forced me to help her. I collected everything so that one day I could sink her. Here are the originals, recordings, deeds, money transfers, the scheme of payments, the real names. The password is Starlight 9997. Don't believe any document she presents. Use this or she will continue. Signed, Verena Harrington." Jelani stared at the flash drive as if it were a hand grenade. "This is it," he whispered. "It's all here. If it's real, it's real," I said. "It has pain and anger in it. That's not something you fake for a game." The sound of an engine drifted in from outside. Not just one, several. We exchanged glances. "Back," I said quietly, "into the shadows." We retreated to the back of the shed. Through the cracks in the planks we could see 3 cars pulling into the yard. One was Naima's familiar white Lexus, the second a black sedan, the third a van. The headlights went out, doors slammed. The wind carried their voices. I managed to shove the flash drive into my inner pocket and snap the small box shut. Naima appeared in the doorway of the shed. The mask of concern was gone. Her face was hard, her eyes cold. Next to her was Preston Minton, as neat as if he were in his office, but without his smile. Behind them were 2 broad-shouldered men. I'd only seen guys like them on the news. Not hunters, not farmers. "Mrs. Zora." Naima's voice cut through the cold air. "You're getting ahead of yourself. This is private property. You are currently engaged in theft and trespassing." I stepped forward. "No sense in hiding now. This is the Harrington family property," I said. "Your private property is still tied up in court. And what are you doing here?" "I am the executive of the will," she answered clearly. "Everything is legal, and this is the second time you've broken into a place you weren't invited to, and the second time you've provoked a dangerous situation. That looks very bad for your reputation before tomorrow's hearing." Minton nodded as if confirming a legal reference. "Let's put it this way," he said softly in his familiar lawyer's voice. "You have a certain storage device. We offer to resolve this civilly. You hand over everything you found and stop this charade. In return, we guarantee you a peaceful life." "A peaceful life?" I scoffed. "In a locked ward." "Don't exaggerate," he said wearily. "You are not in a position to negotiate." Jelani stepped forward, but I held him back with my hand. "What we found here," I said, "does not belong to you. These are the words of your Renata, the woman you used. And judging by how quickly you rushed out here, you are very afraid that those words will be seen by the wrong eyes." Naima smiled. "You overestimate yourself," she said. "And the flash drives. All the truly dangerous information has been under control for a long time. What you are holding is garbage, but what you are doing is a crime. I'm giving you one last chance. Hand it over and we'll go our separate ways." The 2 broad-shouldered men took a step closer. The patrol car was not visible outside the fence. I noticed it and set the panic aside. "Just one thing," I said. "Do you still think I'm an old woman who doesn't know how to use a phone?" I pulled out my mobile, turning the screen toward them. The red bar was visible. "Broadcasting in progress." "I turned on the live stream as soon as you arrived," I said. "Everything you are saying is already being listened to at the precinct, at the county office, and at a couple of news desks plus a copy on the cloud. So, if you take one step closer to me right now, it will look very good in court." The corner of Naima's mouth twitched. Minton spun around at a sound. Somewhere far away, sirens wailed. "Are you bluffing?" he hissed. "You'll check for yourselves in a couple of minutes," I replied. One of the goons stepped forward, but Naima raised her hand. "Stop." She looked at me with such hatred that anyone else's legs would have buckled. "I'm tired of her stares." "You don't understand who you're messing with," she said quietly. "You are destroying a business we worked on for years. The people involved with us will not forgive you for this." "The people involved with you," I said calmly, "will soon be deciding who gets the top bunk in prison." The sirens were closer now. Several cars simultaneously burst into the yard, flashing lights, black tactical vests, shouting, "Freeze everyone!" Malik's voice. "Don't move." One of the officers blocked the exit. Others instantly spread out across the perimeter. Everything was executed like a movie, only colder and quieter. "Naima Famasi," Malik said loudly, stepping forward. "You are under arrest on suspicion of organizing major fraud schemes, forgery of documents, and attempted witness intimidation. We'll add the rest as we go." "You have no right," Minton exploded. "This is illegal. We have warrants. Documents." "You can show the warrants in your cell," Malik cut him off. "We have audio recordings of your threats and witness testimony. And as I see it, you drove yourselves right to the spot where one of your key witnesses from a past case died. Coincidences happen, but not this often." They snapped handcuffs on Naima. She flinched, tried to twist free, but they calmly took her arms. For a second her gaze met mine. There was no hysteria, only cold calculation, frantically flipping through options. "This is not the end," she said quietly. "You don't understand how these things work." "I understand perfectly well," I replied. "And now those higher up than you will understand too." Malik came up to us. "Zora, the flash drive you found here," he said. "And the note officially through the protocol." I took out the box and handed it to him. Jelani stood tall next to me as if shedding some of his guilt. "There's a password on it," he said. "She wrote it herself. It's not our guess." "All the better," Malik nodded briefly. "If everything is confirmed, these aren't just the words of an elderly woman. It's a confession from the inside. The police were putting the detainees into cars. The patrol that was supposed to cover us arrived only after the fact, breathless and apologetic." Malik just waved his hand. I stood by the shed, feeling not even joy, but a heavy kind of relief, as if a huge stone had been moved, but hadn't yet fallen. "Grandma," Jelani said quietly. "We did it." I looked at Naima, who was being escorted into the car. "We'll see," I said. "For now we just dragged her into the light." Malik turned to me, quieter now, dropping his professional tone. "You have to understand," he said. "We have a serious case in our hands now. If that flash drive really contains what you say, not only Naima and Minton will go down, so will the people who paid them. They won't just surrender." I nodded. "Malik," I said, "I've lived my whole life among people who don't just surrender. We'll handle it." He was about to respond, but one of the operatives called him over. They had already started looking at the first files. Malik walked away. I was left alone for a second, next to Jelani and Akono amidst the snow and old planks, and I thought, maybe now this is truly a turning point. The phone in my pocket vibrated briefly. A text message from an unknown number. "Don't celebrate too soon. You've opened something that was better left untouched. Now you all owe us." I looked at the screen at the flickering letters and understood that the loudest part of this story was still ahead. I showed the text message to Malik immediately. "No heroics." He just frowned. "The chain goes higher than we thought then," he said, putting the phone in his pocket. "The number is clearly bogus, but the fact is, Zora, this isn't just about your house anymore." Somehow I felt calmer. When everything is called what it is, it's easier to breathe. The paper war began next, but it wasn't against me. Experts cracked the flash drive from the shed overnight. The password worked. I only saw a fraction of what Ranata had managed to collect. Recordings of conversations with Naima and Minton, numbers, schemes, lists of people who receive payoffs, scans of bogus powers of attorney with forged signatures, financial transactions through shell companies, and the main evidence, a video. In one of the files, Ranata had recorded Naima with a hidden camera. She was calmly talking about how the elderly would die soon anyway, how the land shouldn't be wasted on those who no longer understand what they own. It also contained details about Marguerite Harrington's story, the fire, and hints about a solved problem through a contact inspector. Yes, Ranata herself was part of the scheme, but she had also left a trail of breadcrumbs so that one day those same crumbs would flood everyone. The county investigation unit officially took over. People in suits, tactical teams, and security experts rotated through my house. Naima, Minton, Jenkins, and a couple of other names were charged with new felonies. Bail was no longer an option. The calls from Naima's lawyers became less frequent and more cautious, and then ceased entirely. The case about my mental competency, which Naima had so vigorously launched, slammed shut. The day after we returned from Red Pines, Judge Hill himself called. His voice was dry, official. "Mrs. Zora," he said, "I have reviewed the new materials. The petition for your incompetency has been withdrawn by the petitioner's representatives. Given the clear signs of abuse, I see no grounds for such measures from my side." In plain language, Naima tried to brand me as crazy, and in the end she was the one facing criminal charges. I thanked him without bowing low. "Just thank you for looking at the facts, not the age." But that didn't mean my heart was light. Okono filed for divorce himself without any prompting from me. We sat at the same kitchen table where Naima had recently spread her beneficial proposals. Okono held the papers in his hands. "Mom, I signed all of this," he said. "Not the bogus ones, but the real divorce papers. I can't be near her anymore. Not after what came out." He spoke calmly, but his hands were shaking. "I lived with a person for 20 years who was killing old people for land," he whispered. "I brought her into your house, seated her at your table, allowed her to push you toward these deals, and I stayed silent." "You didn't know," I said. "I should have," he insisted. "You felt it, and I said you were being dramatic. I chose her, not you." I sighed. "Okono, everyone has their foolishness. You've already paid for yours. Now live in a way that your son can rely on you. Stop apologizing. Start fixing." He nodded. His eyes were moist. But for the first time in a long time they held a living resolve, not resignation. Jelani was slower to recover. He moved in with me almost immediately. He temporarily dropped out of college and quit his job. During the day he helped with chores. In the evening he sat staring into space. One day, while we were sorting through the old shed, he broke down. "Grandma, I still feel like an idiot." "Why?" I asked. "I loved her," he said quietly. "Ranata, the person who turned out not to exist. I believed every word. I gave her the documents, showed her your papers, I handed them everything myself. If I hadn't done that, she wouldn't have been so fast." "Stop," I said, sitting down next to him. "You were a boy, and you were facing a trained predator. You chose to trust. She chose to exploit. That is her crime, not yours. But without me, they wouldn't have had half the information." "But you turned back later," I reminded him. "You saw her whispering with Naima. You became suspicious. You got the flash drive. You called me at 5 a.m. I have a house and a life right now because you didn't stay silent then." He was silent for a long time. "Sometimes I miss her," he confessed. "Not the real one, but the one she pretended to be." "That's normal," I replied. "You can grieve for an illusion. Just don't stay there for too long." He nodded, burying his face in my shoulder like he did as a child. I stroked his head and thought that some wounds are healed not by the court but by time. I persuaded him to see a counselor at the county seat, not because he was broken, but because too much had been piled on him. He resisted at first, but then he went. He came back quiet, but his gaze was a little clearer. The investigation widened. On the news, they called it the largest real estate fraud and elderly murder scheme in the region in recent years. I turned it off without listening further. I already knew the names. Besides Naima, Minton, and Jenkins, they brought in 2 more officials, 1 registrar, 1 appraiser, and a couple of small dummy directors. Just like in that text message. Now you all owe us. They weren't referring to me but to those at the top of the pyramid. I was treated as a key witness on one hand, respectfully. On the other, I knew I was now a thorn in many people's sides simply because I survived and didn't shut up. One of the most difficult encounters happened at the county court during a hearing for reparations, as they called it, for the victims' families. A woman in her 50s approached me wearing a severe jacket but with kind eyes. "Miss Zora?" she asked. "Yes," I nodded. "I'm Katrina," she said. "Margaret Harrington's niece, Verena's aunt." I sighed. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said honestly. "For both of them." Katrina nodded. "Thank you," she replied. "I just wanted to say I'm glad you weren't afraid. My mother, Margaret, she wouldn't have believed anyone then." "And me?" She shrugged. "We all believe the pretty words just like you. Only you brought everything to light. At least some of our people will find peace." She paused, then added, "And about Verena, she wasn't born a monster. I'm telling you that as someone close to her, she was broken. But what she did afterward, that was her choice. Your truth is what's needed now." We stood in silence. 2 strangers connected by a single chain of other people's sins. Spring crept in unnoticed. The snow melted. The ground dried, and I stubbornly started working in the garden beds. I deliberately planted a new strawberry patch twice the size of the old one. "Not afraid." Jelani smirked. "Too much symbolism." "We're survivors," I answered. "We have the right to our symbols." He smiled a little. "Genuinely." Malik started visiting more often. Sometimes on official business, sometimes just casually with pies from his wife. One evening we were sitting on the porch. He was drinking coffee, looking out at the field. "I have news," he said. "Let's hear it." I nodded. I was used to his news being either bad or too important to postpone. "Naima," he started, "cut a deal. She's giving testimony, selling out everyone she worked with. Minton, the officials, the police. In exchange, she's asking for a reduced sentence. She's facing life anyway, but she hopes to bargain for some humane conditions." "And?" I asked. "And some of the people she's naming are still free," he said. "They're bigger players. Their connections go beyond our county, and they are very unhappy that one elderly woman and her grandson appended their entire operation." "It's nice to be a legend," I smirked. He didn't smile. "Zora, I'm serious," he said. "While the investigation and the trial are ongoing, you and Galani are under protection. No more solo heroics. Let us do our jobs." "You think they'll try something?" I asked calmly. "I hope not," he answered honestly. "But the text message you received wasn't written from a jail cell or a rural payphone. And it wasn't Naima. It's someone higher up. People like that have a simple logic: eliminate the source of the problem." The wind rustled the old porch planks. In the distance, a patrol car's headlights swept by. I took a sip of my coffee. "So while Naima is selling everyone out, Jelani and I are sitting ducks in the yard," I summarized. "Appealing. I won't let anyone hurt you," Malik said firmly. "But you have to understand the stakes have been raised." I nodded. "I understand." He left, leaving behind silence and the blinking light of the patrol car at the bend. Galani came out onto the porch, sat next to me, covered himself with his jacket. "What did he say?" he asked. "That we're officially getting in someone's way now," I replied. "And we're going to be guarded." Doesn't sound very reassuring. "At least it's honest," I said. "So we live. If we're bothering someone this much, it means it wasn't for nothing." He smirked, but his eyes were tense. In the twilight, our house looked like a small island of light in the darkness. The field around us was open, the road easily visible, the patrol car just one vehicle, and somewhere out there in the darkness were people. "If you're so sure of yourself," I challenged, "then why are you even bothering to call me? Just sit back and watch me get declared incompetent." That's what you want, isn't it? There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Then Naima's voice, the pretense gone, said, I'm giving you an opportunity to back out now, Zora. It's because I used to respect Akono. Think about what I've said until tomorrow. And here's some advice for you. Don't even think about trying to blackmail me. You're not old enough and you certainly don't have the experience for it. And don't you dare underestimate me just because I'm 63. This isn't some kind of kindergarten game we're playing here. See you tomorrow then, Naima, I said and hung up the phone. Akono was sitting there looking as pale as a ghost. Mom, she really could do it, you know. She's capable of anything. I nodded slowly. She could, if we just sit here and wait for it to happen. Jelani, his voice barely a whisper, said, But you just revealed our whole plan to her, Grandma. If she has connections that run deep, she'll start covering up her tracks even faster now. That's exactly the point, I retorted. Let her start scrambling. A predator always makes mistakes when it starts to get nervous and feels like it's backed into a corner. Grandma, Jelani asked, leaning in closer to me, did you really say something about there being extra copies of the evidence? That Ranada might have given you something else? No, I replied, but Naima doesn't know that. And if Ranada did have some kind of hidden backup stash, Naima's going to rush to find it. What about us? Akono asked, his voice filled with concern. I thought about it for a moment. Let's start by looking into Renata's past, I said. She didn't just appear out of nowhere. Before she became Morrow, she was known as Verena Harrington. I nodded towards the printouts of the documents. She was the granddaughter of Marguerite Harrington, the one whose homestead out in the Red Pines area mysteriously burned down after she made a sale. Jelani was already typing away on his laptop. I've got it, he announced after a minute. Verena Harrington, then a name change, and then she moved away. Marguerite Harrington left her the land in her will, but she refused the inheritance. Then there was some kind of legal dispute, and eventually everything became tied up in the accounts of some various entities. That homestead has been stuck in legal limbo for the past 6 years. It sounds like a legal swamp, I said. Nobody can touch it, nobody can sell it, and nobody from the outside is going to want to get anywhere near it either. If Ranada was looking for a place to hide something for a long time, Jelani said quietly, she couldn't have found a better place. I stood up from the table. All right, let's get ready, I said. We're heading out to Red Pines now. Akono practically jumped out of his chair. Mom, it's already getting dark outside. The roads are going to be. Naima only has 24 hours to think this over, I interrupted him. Do you honestly think that her people are going to sit around and wait until morning? If she believes that there's another storage device out there somewhere, she's going to send someone to look for it. I want us to be the first ones there. We need to warn Malik about this, Jelani said. Just send him a quick text or something. We will warn him, I nodded. But we're leaving right now. I grabbed my cell phone and quickly dialed Malik's number. We're going out to Red Pines to the old Harrington homestead. We have reason to believe that Renata's hidden stash is located there. If you don't hear from me within the next 3 hours, I want you to mobilize everyone. He picked up immediately. Are you out of your mind, Zora? I'm sending a patrol car after you right now. No heroics, understand? Nobody's trying to be a hero, I muttered under my breath. I just don't want to wait around until I'm drooling in a nursing home. About 20 minutes later, we were speeding down the dark highway. I was behind the wheel of my old tracker. Jelani was sitting in the passenger seat next to me with the laptop balanced on his knees. Akono was sitting in the back, silently grinding his teeth, probably regretting everything. I could see the headlights of the patrol car in the distance behind us, keeping a respectful distance. The sky was overcast and the snow had started to fall, looking like fine dust in the air. Our headlights illuminated the snowdrifts along the side of the road, the black tree trunks, and the occasional sparse road sign. Grandma, Jelani said quietly, what if there's nothing there? What if we're doing all of this for nothing? Then we'll just have to think of something else. I said. But I've lived long enough to stop believing in coincidences like this. Renata wasn't stupid. She knew that Naima would eventually betray her, and she left some kind of clue behind for someone to find. For who? Akono asked from the back seat. For whoever manages to survive all of this, I answered. We'll see if that's us. After driving for about an hour and a half, the dark outline of a burned-out house and the faint silhouette of an old shed began to appear against the snow-covered field. I turned off the engine. The wind whipped the snow around us, making it swirl across the ground. The air was damp and biting cold. The patrol car stopped a little ways behind us. Well, I said as I opened the car door, let's go see if we can find the thing that turned one woman into a killer, another woman into a corpse, and made them decide that I was crazy. It wasn't until we were getting closer to the shed that I noticed the fresh tire tracks on the side of the road. They weren't from our car, and they definitely weren't from the patrol car. Someone else had already been here before us, or they were following us closely. The shed out in Red Pines looked like it was barely being held together. The Harrington house had completely burned down to the foundation, leaving behind nothing but a blackened shell with empty window sockets. The shed, on the other hand, was still standing, but it was leaning to one side and its gray wood was rotting and falling apart. The planks were missing in several places and the roof was sagging, but it was still there. It was like a memory that nobody wanted, except for those who knew what secrets were hidden inside. We went inside. The air was thick with the smell of old hay, dust, and dampness. The beam of my flashlight swept across the empty stalls, the rusty tools scattered on the floor, and the thick cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. Where would you hide your last words, Renata? I murmured almost to myself. Galani shined his flashlight on the walls, carefully examining them. Akono stayed close to the door, constantly looking around and clearly on edge. Grandma, this place is completely rotten, he whispered. Mice and squatters could have gotten to anything that was hidden here. Quiet, I said. Don't interrupt me. I'm trying to listen. I walked slowly along the stalls, running my fingers over the rough wood. And that's when I saw it, carved into one of the partitions with what looked like a knife. Starlight. For a second I didn't understand what it meant. Then Galani rushed over and examined the carving with his flashlight beam. That's her horse, he said excitedly. There was a picture in that article. It was a picture of Renata as a child, riding a gray horse named Starlight. This must have been her stall. I crouched down and touched the board at the bottom of the partition. One of the planks moved slightly, like it hadn't been nailed down all the way. Here, hold the light for me, I said. I grabbed the edge of the plank and pulled. The board came loose, revealing a narrow opening behind it, and inside the opening was a tightly wrapped plastic bundle. My heart skipped a beat. I carefully pulled the bundle out. Inside the plastic there was a small metal box, and inside the metal box was a flash drive and a folded piece of paper. Jelani carefully unfolded the paper. The handwriting was shaky and angry. If you are reading this, it means that I've either completely messed things up, or that I'm already dead. Naima Famasi destroyed my grandmother and forced me to help her. I've collected all of this evidence so that one day I could bring her down. Here are the originals. Recordings, deeds, money transfers, the payment schemes, the real names. The password is Starlight 9997. Don't believe anything that she presents to you as evidence. Use this or she will continue to get away with it. Signed, Verena Harrington. Jelani just stared at the flash drive like it was a hand grenade with the pin pulled out. This is it, he whispered. Everything is here, Grandma. If it's real, then it's real, I said. You can feel the pain and the anger in those words. That's not something that you can fake just for a game. Suddenly, we heard the distinct sound of an engine coming from outside. Not just one engine but several, I said. We quickly exchanged glances. Back, I whispered. Get back into the shadows. We retreated to the rear of the shed, trying to stay out of sight. Through the cracks in the wooden planks we could see 3 cars pulling into the yard. One of them was Naima's familiar white Lexus. The second was a black sedan and the third was a van. The headlights went out and we heard the doors of the cars slamming shut. The wind carried their voices to us, making it difficult to hear what they were saying. I managed to shove the flash drive into my inside pocket and quickly snapped the small metal box shut. Naima appeared in the doorway of the shed. The concerned expression that she had been wearing was gone. Her face was hard and her eyes were cold. Standing next to her was Preston Minton, looking as neat and composed as if he were still in his office, but without his usual friendly smile. Behind them were two broad-shouldered men. I'd only ever seen guys like that on the news. They weren't hunters and they definitely weren't farmers. Mrs. Zora. Naima's voice cut through the cold night air. You're getting ahead of yourself here. This is private property. You are currently engaged in theft and trespassing. I took a step forward. There was no point in hiding anymore. This is the Harrington family property, I said. Your so-called private property is still tied up in court. And what exactly are you doing here? I am the executor of the will, she answered clearly. Everything that I'm doing is perfectly legal, and this is the second time that you've broken into a place that you weren't invited to, and the second time that you've provoked a dangerous situation. That doesn't look very good for your reputation, especially with tomorrow's hearing coming up. Minton nodded his head, as if confirming a legal reference. Let's put it this way, he said softly, using his familiar lawyer voice, whose names I didn't know yet, were clearly upset that an elderly woman wasn't intimidated and dared to speak up. I left the lights on for a good while that night, listening to the floorboards groan, the wind whisper through the trees outside, and the occasional car whooshing by on the highway. I found myself thinking that maybe we had already been through the worst of it. Or perhaps the biggest challenge still lay ahead of us. It didn't end with some grand spectacle, but with stacks of paperwork, endless waiting in drab hallways, signature after signature, and a deep weariness that settled into my bones. 6 months after the events at the mill in Red Pines, Naima was found guilty. There was no fancy legal jargon involved. It was murder, conspiracy, large-scale fraud, forgery, witness intimidation, and organized crime. She received a life sentence. Not because she was some kind of cartoon villain, but because the evidence against her was overwhelming both in quantity and variety. The flash drives, the recordings, the money, the people she had so confidently believed she controlled. The moment they realized she was beyond saving, they all started talking to save their own skins. Minton received a significant prison sentence, a serious one with no possibility of parole. Jenkins, along with a couple of other corrupt officers, also ended up behind bars. Some officials managed to slither out of it. A few avoided serious jail time due to health issues. That's just how life goes sometimes. Perfectly just outcomes don't always happen. In the court verdict, I was listed in a very uninteresting way, as both a victim and a witness. The decision regarding the house was handled separately. All the forged deeds, powers of attorney, and wills were declared legally invalid. The property title was officially returned to my name. No strings attached, no hidden conditions, just the way it should have been from the very beginning. Summit was taken apart piece by piece. The shell companies were seized and their assets were sold off. The families of those who had died received compensation. The amounts were small, almost laughable when you considered the lives that were lost, but it was still something. People left the courthouse not exactly happy, but with a sense that their loved ones were no longer officially considered fools who were solely to blame for what happened to them. Okono finalized the divorce without making a fuss. He didn't fight it, didn't shout, didn't try to get revenge. He simply ended the marriage, something he should have done years earlier. He moved closer to where I lived and got a simpler, less stressful office job. He wasn't a hero, not some kind of avenging angel, just an ordinary man in his 50s who had trusted the wrong person way too much. Now he comes over on weekends, helps out with the chores around the house, and sometimes just sits quietly with me on the porch. Every now and then, he apologizes. I tell him the same thing every time, live a good life. That will be his apology. I saw Naima on TV recently, just a quick shot of her at the courthouse. I only recognized her by her eyes. Everything else about her seemed wiped clean. I didn't turn off the TV or yell at the screen. I just finished my coffee. I didn't feel any satisfaction from her punishment. It was far too late for joy. They had managed to do so much damage before this all came to an end. Jelani quietly started to get back on his feet. He went to see a counselor, talk things through with his buddies at college, and then he came to me. "Grandma," he said, "I want to go back to school, but not as the idiot who got caught up in that mess. I want to go back as someone who knows what legal documents are and what kind of trouble they can cause. I'm going to study law part-time, work here, and study there." I just shrugged. "The most important thing is not to punish yourself," I told him. "You'll figure out the rest." He officially registered at his father's place, but he mostly lived with me. During the day, he studied and helped with chores around the house. In the evenings, he sat at his laptop, but now he was looking at the criminal code instead of scammers' flash drives. Sometimes he would complain about how many loopholes there were in the law. I just smirked. "It's a good thing you can spot them now," I said. He didn't mention Ranata in conversation, but I know that it still hurts him inside, and that's perfectly normal. Someone who doesn't feel anything is like a walking stone. Those are the ones who really scare me. Things are pretty simple for me now. Officially, I'm under protection. A patrol car parks down the street sometimes. One of the detectives stops by for coffee on official business. Malik calls to ask, "Is anyone giving you trouble?" At first, I received a few strange messages, hints, veiled threats. Then things quieted down, or maybe the problems just moved to other neighborhoods. I used to look over my shoulder, yes, and listen for noises at night. But then I just got tired of it. To be honest, after you've lived as long as I have, you don't see life as some fragile, precious thing anymore. I don't wish death on anyone, but living in constant fear just isn't my style. The farm has survived. The garden, the old house, the shed, everything is still there. The only thing that's changed is that I'm a lot more careful with paperwork now. I go to the county center myself, with my glasses perched on the end of my nose, and I read every single line. If anyone tries to rush me saying, "Oh, it's just formalities," I smile and tell them, "Then you can wait." I tell my neighbors the story without any drama. Just the facts. Don't sign anything in a hurry. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Take someone you trust with you when you go. They all listen in different ways. Some nod in agreement, others just brush it off. That's their right. I've given them my warning. In the spring I planted strawberries again. This time the rows were straight and neat. Jelani helped me. We didn't have a competition to see who could eat the most like we used to when he was a kid. We're too old for that now. But when the first berries ripened, we sat on the porch, washed a few in a bowl, and ate them in silence. "They're good," he said. "And they shouldn't be scary," I replied. "The berries aren't to blame for anything." We laughed, not loudly, just human to human. People sometimes ask me about the moral of the story. A young, polished detective came by once and asked, "Mrs. Zora, why do you think you didn't break? Everyone around you was either silent or believed the lies, but you stood your ground." I thought about it for a moment and answered honestly, "Because I have something to lose, and I know the value of what I've worked for my whole life. A home isn't just made of brick. It's made of people and memories. And also because too many times in my life people have assumed I was dumber than I am. I just got tired of it. It's not about being a hero. It's just about having the habit of fighting for what's mine. I didn't become an internet celebrity after all this. I didn't run for office. I didn't start a foundation. I just live quietly. I wake up early, light the furnace, complain about the prices of things, make jam, and go to the county seat on a regular schedule. I know the schedule without even looking at a clock. The only difference is that now, when someone starts talking to me with that condescending tone like, "Oh, at your age," I just look them calmly in the eye. And if I see even a hint of Naima's tactics there, I very politely send them on their way. I'm not afraid of being alone. Elijah has been gone for a long time. Friends have either moved away or passed away. I have a couple of neighbors left, my son, my grandson, and my home. A home where the walls remember me when I was young. Not just the woman I am today. Sometimes in the evening I go out onto the porch, sit down and listen. Silence, the road, a dog barking in the distance, a train rumbling by. It's enough for me. Not because everything is perfect. It isn't. Naima isn't the only one like her. And she won't be the last. Not everyone will go to jail. Not everyone will be compensated. Some will still walk away with other people's homes in their pockets and a clean record. But I kept my little piece of land. I fought my battle. I can't fight everyone else's battles for them. I'm too old for that. And it's not my responsibility. If I had to sum it all up, my conclusion would be this. At our age, it's very easy for people to think of us as easy targets. But many of us have skin that's tougher than your armor. We've survived more than you've even had time to imagine. And if you corner us, we know how to do more than just cry. We know how to count, how to remember, and how to speak up. I simply didn't stay silent that one time. The rest was handled by those whose job it is. That summer, the strawberries ripened like crazy. Jelani came back after his final exams. Akono arrived with a bag full of groceries. We sat at the table, the three of us, eating strawberries with sugar. No one made any big speeches about justice or victory. Akono just said quietly, "Mom, thank you for being you." I shrugged. "I just kept you from being homeless," I replied. "I live my life the way I live it. And that perhaps is my new beginning. No movie-style happy ending, just the life they tried to take away from me, and I held on to it. And that is enough." Did you like the story? And what city are you listening from? Let's connect in the comments. If you enjoyed the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this to you. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. I'm looking forward to reading your comments about the story. On the screen you can find 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more content on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.